Marshall, let me introduce him. Actually, he doesn't need any introduction in any way. For most of you as coaches, you would have known him. His books, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, which is going to be the basis of, in some ways, this talk today on leadership, as well as Triggers, are selling in millions, and he's one of the greatest thinkers as far as management and coaching is concerned. I have personally benefited from his sessions with me on coaching and mentoring, and there's probably no one in the coaching space who doesn't know Marshall Goldsmith. Unfortunately, since he is in UAE and there is some restrictions in terms of using Zoom, Marshall has not been able to come on the video, so he's going to speak to us on phone. What I have here are the slides, and I'll be moving them as Marshall goes through the progress of the presentation. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, and we'll, depending on the time available, we'll have you come up and you raise your hand. So for the moment, I'll just stop with this, and Marshall, over to you. The first slide is on.
Well, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Let me briefly introduce myself and we will begin. My name is Marshall. I'm from a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. I went to undergrad school at a little engineering school, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, got an MBA from Indiana University, a PhD from UCLA Anderson School. I was a college professor and dean when I was very, very young. Then for the past 41 years, I've done a few things. One is I give talks or teach classes. I travel all around the world speaking and teaching. I've been to exactly 101 countries, and on the American Airlines alone, have over 11 million frequent flyer miles. So I'm a mega flyer. I'm on a nice trip right now. I've just been to India and to Mumbai, after Mumbai, Dubai, then Abu Dhabi, and then after Abu Dhabi, Bangkok, and then back to the States. So I travel around all the time. Then the first thing I do is I said speaking and teaching. The second thing I do, which I'm actually most famous for, is I coach executives. I'm the coach of the CEO of Ford and Pfizer and Glaxo and the president of the World Bank and the Mayo Clinic and so many other interesting people. And what I love about coaching is not what I teach my clients, it's what they teach me. I always feel I learn far more from my clients than they ever learned from me. Then the next thing I do is write and edit books and articles, and I have done 38 books. What Got You Here Won't Get You There is by far my most popular book. It's sold about 1.5 million copies. The others have sold probably 1 million put together. And my newest book is called How Women Rise with Sally Helgeson, which I think is going to be a mega hit. I've been talking about it in India. I'm talking about it in Dubai. The global interest in the book is just huge. I was in Russia talking about it. It's already out in Russian. So very exciting. We're even going to Saudi Arabia and talk about it. So it's very, very exciting. A book for women, How Women Rise. Then I give away all of my materials. So please go to my website. If you look online, you can see there my website is www.marshallgoldsmith.com. I give everything away. All my material you may copy, share, download, duplicate, use in church, charity, business, nonprofit. I've got 200 videos online, so use my material any way that you want to use my material. And then I love getting emails. Send me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. I will apologize in advance. If you send me an email, I can't get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you. Just it may take a while. So if you do have some patience, send me an email. I will get back to you. So let us begin. Let us begin. If we can go to our first slide, which is called Teaching Leaders What to Stop. Teaching Leaders What to Stop. I had the privilege before he died of spending 50 days with Peter Drucker, the world's greatest authority on management. And he taught me many great lessons. One great lesson he taught me is this: we spend a lot of time helping leaders learn what to do. We don't spend enough time helping leaders learn what to stop. He said half the leaders I meet, they don't need to learn what to do. They need to learn what to stop. That one comment led to my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So let's go to our next slide, goals. Now, what are our goals in this session? One is learn how to use to stop in coaching. And then we're going to talk about Feedforward. Understand to be ready to use something called Feedforward, which is kind of the essence of how I coach people and encourage leadership development. Then number 3, learn a proven model that you can use to develop yourself as a leader, as a partner, and understand how this model can be used to coach others. Understand the basic of something called stakeholder-centered coaching. This is a process that's been trained to thousands of people around the world. 2,500 have been certified in our coaching process. The leadership development model is backed up by research from tens of thousands of people. So what I'm going to teach you, this is a material that works pretty much around the world, regardless of what country that I'm in. Now let's go to our next slide called Classic Challenges for Successful Leaders. I was interviewed in the Harvard Business Review and asked a question. What is the number one problem of all the successful people you've worked with over the years? What is their number one problem? And my answer, winning too much. And what does this mean? If it's important, we want to win. Critical, we want to win. Meaningful, we want to win. Trivial, we want to win. And not worth it, we want to win anyway. Winners love winning. It's incredibly difficult for smart, successful people not to constantly win. Now, I'm going to give you a case study of winning too much that almost all of my clients fail. And I'm going to make a prediction. Almost all of you will fail this case study. And when I say fail, you will fail yourself. Case study number one. You want to go to dinner at restaurant X. Your husband, wife, friend, or partner wants to go to dinner at restaurant Y. You have a heated argument. You go to restaurant Y. It was not your choice. The food tastes awful and the service is terrible. Option A, critique the food. Point out our partner was wrong. This mistake could have been avoided had only you listened to me. Option B, shut up. Eat the stupid food. Try to enjoy it and have a nice evening. What would I do? What should I do? Almost all my clients, what would I do? Critique the food. What should I do? Shut up. Well, my guess is that almost everyone listened has critiqued the food before. Well, not worth it. Now I have a second case study that's even worse. You have a hard day at work, a hard day. You go home. Your husband, wife, friend, or partner's there. You're in the car to go to the store. And you know, you're driving on the store. You're under lots of pressure, and that person in the front seat says, look out, there's a red light up ahead. Now, if we're not careful, what do we say? What do you mean there's a red light? We start yelling, screaming at the person, acting like an idiot. Why? Well, we have to prove that we knew there was a red light. They didn't need to tell us, and then again, we were right. Well, it's very hard for smart, successful people not to constantly prove how smart we are, not to constantly prove how right that we are. And by the way, everything I teach you today is going to be incredibly easy to understand. It's incredibly difficult to do. If you read my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, you read funny story after funny story after funny story. It's very tempting to read the book and think, what a bunch of idiots. How could those people be so stupid? Well, the quote idiots in the book all have IQs of 150, and they're all CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. Now, I'll tell you one thing. This stuff is very easy to understand. This stuff is hard to do. Why is it so hard to do? Well, Peter Drucker said our mission in life is to make a positive difference in the world, not to prove we're smart, not to prove we're right. Easy theory. How many tests have you taken in your life? How many times have you had to prove how smart you are? How many times have you had to prove you knew the answer? Thousands. It's very, very hard to stop doing this. An important thing to remember as you advance in leadership is this. For the great individual achiever, it's all about me. And it's all about proving you're smart and right and clever. For the great leader, it's all about them. You no longer have to be that smartest person in the room. You need to learn to let go and let other people be winners. This transition isn't easy to transition to understand. It's a hard transition to do. My guess is almost everyone listening to this call is a pretty good individual achiever. If you weren't, you probably wouldn't be on the call. That does not mean you're a great leader. It's not easy to make the transition from I'm a great achiever to I'm a great leader. Next classic challenge of smart, successful people is called adding too much value. And what's that mean? I'm young, smart, enthusiastic. I come to you with an idea. You're my boss. You think it's a great idea. Rather than just saying great idea, our natural tendency is to say, well, that's a nice idea. Why don't you add this to it? Well, the problem is the quality of the idea may go up 5%. My commitment to execute may go down 50%. Hey, it's no longer my idea, boss. Now it's your idea. Incredibly difficult for smart, successful people not to constantly add value. One of my good coaching clients retired after a few years ago. His name, J.P. Garnier. J.P. was the CEO of a very large drug company, GlaxoSmithKline. I asked J.P., what'd you learn about leadership as the CEO of this huge company? He said, I learned a very hard lesson. And every time you get promoted in life, this lesson will become more real for you. He said, my suggestions become orders. My suggestions become orders. Now, he said, if they're smart, they're orders. If they're stupid, they are orders. If I want them to be orders, they are orders. And if I do not want them to be orders, they are orders anyway. My suggestions become orders. I asked my friend JP, what'd you learn from me when I was your executive coach that helped you the most? He said, you taught me one lesson that helped me be a better leader and have a happier life. I asked him, what was that lesson? He said, before I speak, stop and breathe and ask myself one question. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And he said, as the CEO of this huge company, 50% of the time, if I had the discipline to stop and to breathe and to ask myself, is it worth it? What did I decide? Am I right? Maybe. Is it worth it? No. Next classic problem with smart, successful people is called, I already knew that. I'm young, smart, enthusiastic. I come to you with an idea. You think it's a great idea. You did already know it. Just say great idea. It's incredibly difficult for smart, successful people to hear someone tell us something we already know without us pointing out, I already knew that. Again, remember, as a leader, you don't have to prove you know more than them. In fact, the more they know more than you, the better it is for both parties. And more good news, everything I teach you today doesn't just apply at work, it all applies at home. I'm now going to give you 4 words that help you be a better coach at work and a probably better family member at home. What are these 4 words? Help more, judge less. Help more, judge less. Well, how many of us have friends and family members that might be happy if we helped just a little bit more and we judged just a tad less? Would any of them object to these changes? I doubt it. So good to do at work, even better to do at home. Now, you're going to be having access to articles, as was described earlier. One of the articles you're going to get is called Problems of the Super Smart. And as a coach, I worked with many CEOs, very distinguished people, and many brilliant people. It's not always easy for real smart people to be great leaders. Why? Well, really smart people are often impatient, and they don't understand why other people don't get what they're saying. Why? They put things together very quickly in their minds. It can be real hard to realize other people may not be as smart, not put ideas together so quickly, not be so brilliant. So if you look at some of the leaders I've worked with a wide range. One year I worked with the leader who was ranked best leader in America. At the same time, I worked with a leader who was ranked worst leader in America. And probably both of them deserved it. The one who was ranked the worst leader was actually, from an IQ point of view, probably smarter than the one who was ranked the best leader. One of his problems, though, he couldn't work with normal people. They just seemed too slow. They didn't get it. He kept saying, like, don't you get it? Don't you get it? I finally had to point out that they were not really the freaks here. He was. They didn't have IQs of 180. He did. It was very hard for him to deal with normal people because he's just so smart. Well, I hope you enjoyed the article. It's called Problems of the Super Smart, and especially technical background, engineers, scientists. The article might be very helpful to you. Now, I'd like you to go to the next slide. And on this next slide, if my coordinators can help me, I'm going to ask for input from the group. And then I'm going to stop and get some input into what you tell me. Now, I want you to answer this question. What % of all interpersonal communication time is spent on A, people talking about how smart, special, and wonderful they are, or listening to someone do that, plus B, people talking about how stupid, inept, or bad someone else is, or listening to people do that. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to take A plus B divided by all interpersonal communication time and give me one percentage number. 0 would be none. Obviously, the number cannot be 0. 100 would be all. The number cannot be 100. So I want you to give me a number between 0 and 100. Now, for my engineers who are listening, I know there's not a, quote, right answer, but there is an average answer. So I want to see who can give me an answer that is closest to the average answer in the whole world. So take A plus B, divided by all communication time, give me one number between 0 and 100, and write it in on the comment column. And I'm going to ask my friends who are coordinating, tell me what the scores look like. Will you all be able to do that, my coordinators?
Yeah, it is varying at the moment from 30 at the lowest to about 100 on top, varying somewhere between 60 to 80 in between.
So what would you say the average is, about 70?
I would say 65, yeah.
Very interesting, and I have a question. Did you know the average in the world before I ask you this question? My guess is you didn't.
The answer is no, yeah.
Well, the average in the world is 65%. So what's amazing is the average in the study that we just did is almost identical to the average in the world. What's amazing, I do this all around the world. The scores are almost always the same. It's almost never below 55. It's almost never above 65. I mean, above 75. It's always right in that range with an average of about 65. Now, for everyone listening, most people I work with feel busier today than they've ever felt in their lives. I'm now going to give you a productivity enhancement tool for yourself and for your teams. What is it? Reduce that number. Reduce that number. How much do we learn talking about how smart, special, or wonderful we are? Nothing. How much do we learn talking about how stupid everyone else is? Nothing. And what % of all communication time is wasted on that according to the world and according to everyone listening to me right now? About 65%. Reduce that number, life is much more positive and much more productive. Oh, and by the way, the average person would say, we spend a lot of time talking about how smart, special, and wonderful we are. We spend twice as much time talking about how dumb everybody else is. So in other words, the bottom half of that equation is roughly twice as big as the top half of that equation. Now, how can we reduce that number? I'm now going to teach you something that is totally counterintuitive, but shockingly effective. This is called, and turn to the next slide, using small amounts of money to create large changes in behavior. Using small amounts of money to create large changes in behavior. Now, most of the people that I work with are basically rich people. And most of them are pretty generous. They donate money to charity. I find my clients $20 for various sins, and the money all goes to a charity, and they get to pick out the charity. So you might think, well, gee, rich people wouldn't mind losing tiny amounts of money. That would be wrong. Rich people hate losing any money. It is amazing how this process works. Now, I'm going to begin with something called destructive comments. Those unnecessary, nasty little comments about our colleagues. How many of you have heard the sermon preached before? We want to create an environment where people reach out across the company. We want to build positive, synergistic, win-win relationships with our colleagues. Oh, do we like those silos? No, we must tear down those bad silos. How many of us have heard these sermons preached before? Well, most of us. What happens to all this corporate happy talk? What happens to all this corporate happy talk when we stab our coworkers in the back? Well, it doesn't make things better. It makes things a little bit worse. This is a very bad, bad habit. Now, I don't want to look like I'm preaching at you. I also get feedback. I'll never forget the first time I got feedback from my own staff. One item was avoids destructive comments about other people. What score did I make? 8 percentile, 8. 92% of the people in the world did better than me. And I wrote the test. I go back to my staff and said, staff, I'm going to be better here. This is a bad habit. I teach everyone not to do that. I've been one of the worst offenders. I said, if you ever hear me make a bad comment about a person or group again, bring it to my attention. I'm going to pay you $10 US. I'm going to break this terrible habit. Then I gave them a pep talk. I thought they'd be embarrassed to ask for the money. Pep talk was unneeded. They tricked me into making nasty comments in order to pick up $10. I no more gave this pep talk than when our clients called. He said, we need this and this and this. I said, he wants somebody down our pay is cheap. $10. My partner Tim called. I said, that fool, how did he get a PhD? $10. I knew I've lost $50, locked myself in the office and refused to speak to anybody. First day, it cost me $50. Second day, $30, and the third day, $10. Still cost me money? Yeah. What score did I make last time? 4.8 out of 5. What does this teach you? Spend a few $1,000, start getting better. Well, it is amazing how well this works. With my own clients, I find $20 for every unnecessary comment about people. And by the way, over the years, how much money have I collected from my clients playing these little games? Over $1 million US. And it doesn't hurt anybody. And it all goes to good charities. The next one, $20 fine? No, but however. No, but however. One night I had dinner with General Eric Shinseki. He was head of the United States Army, 4-star general. We're surrounded by 2 to 4-star generals. He looked at me and said, Marshall, who is your favorite customer? I said, sir, my favorite customer, smart, dedicated, hardworking, driven to achieve, creative, entrepreneurial, cares about the company and customers, great values, high integrity, gets results, and is a stubborn, opinionated know-it-all that never wants to be wrong. I said, sir, do you think any of the generals in this very room may fit such a description? He looked at me and said, Marshall, we have a target-rich opportunity. Well, my guess is many people listening to me, they might be a little bit stubborn and opinionated yourself. Now, this next thing is great for the stubborn of the world. Starting now, I find my clients $20 as they begin a sentence with 3 words, no, but, or however. Somebody talks to you, first word out of the mouth. You try to talk to somebody, first word out of the mouth, no. What they just say? Shut up, you're wrong. But, what does but mean? Disregard everything you just said. It's a terrible habit. One of my clients was stubborn and opinionated. I'm reviewing his 360-degree feedback report. He looked at me and said, but Marshall. I said, that's free. If I ever talk to you again, you start a sentence with no, but, or however, I'm going to find you $20. I said, but Marshall. I said, 20. No, 40. No, 60, 80, 100. He lost $420 in an hour and a half. At the end of the hour and a half, he said, thank you. I had no idea. He got so much better at being a good listener, just learning this one very, very simple technique. Now, this next one is really good for the parents of the world. I find my clients $20 if they say, that is great, but. What is the worst thing we can do when you try to recognize another person? That is great, but. What impact does that word but have on recognition? Disregard everything I just said. Now, we're bad at work, we're worse at home. Kid comes home from school with a report card. Daddy, Mommy, look at my report card from school. 5 times I made the highest grade. 1 time I made almost the high grade. If we're not careful, what do we now say, Daddy and Mommy? That's great, but why didn't you get that high grade every time? What's that kid thinking? That's great, but why do I have a jerk like you for a parent? Well, very important to realize this. If we say that's great, but enough times to the people we love, we teach them there isn't any great. All there ever is but. Now, I think it's fine to deal with good news and it's fine to deal with bad news and problems. All I'm saying is when you try to give somebody recognition, don't say that's great followed by but. And the final one is something that's amazing. I'm going to teach you something. If you listen to this, you're going to hear it thousands of times. We never think about it. What is the most common phrase uttered by smart people when people tell us something that we agree with? No, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. Sometimes we say, no, that's a fantastic idea. No, it's amazing. Well, if you agree with me, what do you say no for? When you say yes? What no, I agree with you really means is no, Marshall, of course I agree with you. Of course I understand what you're saying. You see, you're confusing me with someone who you think may need to hear you right now, so you can just be quiet. We're so afraid that people may not recognize our brilliance. That no, I agree with you means no, you don't have to tell me this. I already understood it. Listen to this. You'll hear it thousands of times through life. Now, next, Feedforward. My whole coaching and leadership development practice is based on a simple concept called Feedforward. In Feedforward, I tell people you ask for ideas, you listen to the ideas, you thank people, you don't judge and critique, you don't put people down, you never promise to do everything they say, you just listen and say thank you, and you promise to do something based on what everyone teaches you. Feedforward is based on an assumption that we can't change the past anyway. And Buddha, I'm a Buddhist. Buddha said, only do what I teach if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, it's okay, just don't do it. Well, in Feedforward, you ask for ideas and you listen to them. And when people give you ideas, you don't say stinky idea or that's a bad idea or that other idea will never work. Or let me tell you why it's a dumb idea. You shut up, you listen, you ponder the ideas, you think about them, you put them all together, and you do what you can. Very, very, very simple concept. Works amazingly well. And you're going to get an article about Feedforward. It's called Try Feedforward, Not Feedback. Strongly suggest you give this a shot. Now, next slide is called Learning from a Great Leader. Learning from a great leader. Now, in my role as an executive coach, I have a very unique billing system. I don't get paid if my clients don't get better. Better is not judged by me or my client, it's judged by everyone around my client. There's a great way to test if someone really believes what they're saying. You can ask a person one question and instantly determine their level of belief. What is this simple question? I've never seen it fail. Do you want to bet on it? Now, if they say, I believe it, but I don't want to bet on it, you know what you learn? They don't believe it. Well, this is something I bet on every time. When you get paid for results, you learn a little humility. The client I coached that I spent the most amount of time with didn't improve at all and didn't get paid. The client I spent the least amount of time with improved more than anyone I've ever coached. 200 people got better and I did get paid. This is a humbling lesson. For those of you with a background in mathematics, I made a chart. On one dimension, it was called time spent with Marshall Goldsmith. The other dimension was called improvement. There was a clear negative correlation between spending time with me and getting better. I thought, this is a troubling chart. I went to and talked to my client who improved the most, who I spent the least amount of time with, and was probably the greatest leader I've ever worked with to start with. My client's name, Alan Mullally. Alan, CEO of the Ford Motor Company, fantastic leader, great human being, CEO of the Year in the United States, 2014 ranked by Fortune #3 greatest leader in the world, led an incredible turnaround at Ford. The stock went from $1 to $18.40, and when he left the company, he had a 97% approval rating from every employee in a union company. They love this guy. Just an amazing leader. He's an even better human being. He's a great friend of mine. A wonderful, wonderful person. I talked to my friend Alan. I said, Alan, of all the people I coached, I spent the least amount of time with you, and you improved the most. I showed Alan my chart. I said, Alan, the way this chart looks, if you never met me, you'd really be good. So I asked my friend Alan, what should I learn about coaching from you? He taught me 2 lessons, which I'm going to share with you. If you don't learn anything else from me but these 2 lessons, you'll be a better coach and have a happier life. I said, Marshall, lesson number 1, your biggest challenge as a coach is called customer selection. Pick the right customer, your coaching process always works. You pick the wrong customer, your coaching process never works. And he said, number 2, never make the coaching process about yourself and your own ego and how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you work with, how proud you are of them. And then he said, as the leader of Ford, my job wasn't that different. He said, I don't design the cars. I don't build the cars. I don't sell the cars. I could have great people. And then he said, every day I told myself, leadership's not about me. Leadership's about them. These are pretty simple lessons that very few leaders get. Again, for that great achiever, it may be all about me. For that great leader, it's all about them. Most of us never deeply understand these points. Now, for my fine coordinators, I'm going to ask the group a question, and I want to get some responses from the group, and I want you to tell me what the people say. I'm going to ask the group 2 questions. You can answer both simultaneously. The first one is a yes/no question. Question number 1, how many people listening to me have stupidly attempting to change the behavior of a husband, wife, or partner that had no interest in changing? Question number 1, have you tried this before, yes or no? And then I'd like you to say, how's that working out for you? How is this partner changing crusade working out? Attempting to change the behavior of a husband, wife, or partner that has no interest in changing, and how's it working out for you? Please write that in the comments section. I'm going to see what people have to say.
Yeah, many have said, yes, we have tried. It doesn't work, not well.
Lots of people trying with not a lot of success. Now I'm going to ask the group another question, a much more troubling question. If the answer is yes, I want to hear what you have to say and tell me how this is working out. How many of you have ever stupidly attempting to change the behavior of mommy or daddy that's got no interest in changing? And how's that working out for you, this parental change activity? Yeah, write down your comments there. Trying to change mommy or daddy that has no interest in changing. Have you tried it? And how well is it working out?
Even worse, disaster, backfired big time, more frustrating, impossible, horrible.
Well, I think you're getting the point here. You're getting the point. I teach at the Dartmouth Tuck School of Business. I was teaching my class, and I said, how many of you have attempted to change the behavior of mommy or daddy that has no interest in changing? Woman raised her hand. I said, are you trying to change mommy or daddy? She said, I'm trying to change daddy. I said, okay, well, what's daddy's problem? She said, daddy doesn't have a healthy lifestyle. Then I asked her, well, how old is old dad? She said, 94 years old. I said, leave the old boy alone. Want to smoke a cigar, old man, smoke too. Smoke pot, who cares? He's 94 years old. Well, I'm now going to teach you something that's going to help you be a better coach and have a happier life. In terms of coaching adults, if they do not care, do not waste your time. If they do not care, do not waste your time. How much of our lives have been wasted trying to change adults that don't care, and what's our return on that investment? And then a great lesson for helping yourself as a leader, as a friend, as a partner. If you don't care, don't waste your time. If you're going to get better at anything, the motivation for improvement is going to come from one and only one place. That's inside you. Look at these people I coach. I can't make them change what they don't want to change. What am I supposed to do? Shoot them, beat them up, kill them? I can help them change what they do want to change. I cannot make you change what you don't want to change. If you don't want to change something, you're going to change it anyway. It's okay. I can help you change what you do want to change. That's good enough. That's good enough. Now let's go to the next slide. Developing yourself as a leader and as a partner. This is a very simple, proven model. It's been tested around the world. And I'm going to talk about the results of our research. It begins with learning to ask a question. What is that question? How can I be a better? How can I be a better friend, a better family member, a better partner, a better boss? How can I be a better? We don't ask this question very often. We don't ask this question very often. What can I do to be a better? Now, I'm going to ask the group a question. I'd like to hear your responses. Here's a simple question. Do you believe that customer satisfaction is important? And that's yes or no. And then after the yes or no, write, how important is it? Do you believe that customer satisfaction is important? And then I'd love to hear the responses.
Yeah, the response is yes, 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 most important, 100% absolutely, very important.
Very, very good. And I'm going to ask another question now. Should we ask our customers for their input in terms of how we can be even better? Should we ask those good customers for their input about how we can get even better?
Yes.
What do people say to that?
Yeah, yes, indeed, absolutely, sure.
Perfect. Very good. Now I have another question. If you have a husband or wife, here's the question. Have you spent a lot of time asking your husband, wife, or partner, what can I do to be a better partner in this relationship?
The answer is mostly no, never asked, not really, occasionally yes. And some smileys, confused, not very often.
Yeah, I noticed a massive dip in that level of enthusiasm. Well, who's more important? Those customers that don't even know your name, or that person at home seems to love you sometimes? It's actually that person at home. So get in the habit of asking this question, how can I be a better, not just at work, also at home? How can I be a better father, better mother? How can I be a better son, a better daughter? How can I be a better husband, wife, friend, partner? And then after we ask that question, the next step in the process is called listen. And the first thing we want to do is the last thing we should do. What's that? Ask for input, then express my opinion. If I ask for input, then if I ask you for input, then start expressing my opinion. What's that sound like? Defensiveness, denial, rationalization, making excuses. Fight the urge to make excuses and just listen. Now, the next thing is ask, listen, think. And fight that urge to just start talking, especially when we feel angry or out of control. What do most of us do when we get feedback? Blah, 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 blah. What do most of us do when we get angry? Blah, 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 blah. Just stop and breathe and think about what that person is saying and really fight that urge to avoid speaking when angry or speaking when out of control. Ask, listen, stop and think about what people are telling you. And then don't shoot the messenger. Don't punish those people that are trying to tell us the truth. Thank people. When you're driving that car and that person corrects your driving, don't start screaming at them. Just say thank you. They're trying to save your life here. Just stop and say thank you. I have a funny story. I was teaching my class at Dartmouth. A man raised his hand. He said, I have an embarrassing story to tell you. He said, my wife was always correcting my driving. He said, I got so sick of it. I told her, quit correcting my driving. I get sick of you correcting my driving all the time. When I drive a car, don't ever do that again. He said, I'm embarrassed to say that about 2 weeks ago, I ran through a red light and plowed right into 2 cars. He said, thank goodness no one was hurt. First thing he did, he looks at his wife and goes, why didn't you say anything? Well, don't punish the messenger. Get in the habit of asking for input, listening to it, and thinking about it, and then thanking people. Don't punish them. Now, let me give you 2 examples of asking for input and responding, a negative and a positive. First, the negative. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto by Dr. Atul Gawande, Gawande, from Harvard Medical School. A great book, The Checklist Manifesto by Dr. Atul Gawande. If you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. In his book, The Checklist Manifesto, Dr. Gawande makes a very deep point. If you go in for a surgery and the nurse asks the doctor a series of very simple questions before the surgery, the odds on unneeded infection plummet and the death rate's cut by about 2/3. Not a theory of fact. The huge majority of hospitals around the world don't allow the nurse to ask the doctor the questions. Why? Ego. According to Dr. Gawande, more people have died because of the egos of surgeons than died in the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, and the Iraqi War put together. Too much ego. That's the negative case study. Now for the positive. For 9 years, I trained the admirals in our fine United States Navy. I don't charge them any money. I just do it try to be a nice guy, and they do give me treats on occasion. A few years ago, my treat day in a nuclear sub. Me and 8 other old men got to spend all day on a nuclear submarine and diving under the waters and pretending to torpedo things. Oh, we had so much fun. Then, a few years later, got a better treat. Where did I get to go? Highway to the danger zone. If you've ever seen the movie Top Gun, I had to fly 95 minutes on a United States Navy Top Gun fighter jet. 6 Gs, oxygen, flying upside down, doing tricks. And I got to fly the plane myself 10 minutes, and I'm very proud to say, did not throw up. I did not throw up. Well, before we took off, I noticed this kid is asking my host a series of very simple questions from a checklist. And these weren't tricky questions. First question for the doctor is, did you wash your hands? First question for the pilot is, how much fuel do you have? I said, sir, this is puzzling. The doctor doesn't like the nurse asking the question because her ego is too big. Then I said, I'm confused. Nobody's got a bigger ego than the U.S. Navy Top Gun fighter jet pilot who becomes an admiral. You got the biggest ego in the world. You don't care the kid asks you the question. I said, sir, what's the difference? He said, Marshall, there's a huge difference. That operation crashes, you die. The plane crashes, I die. Well, how important is ego and pride? Every day we make it more important, our health and our safety, the people we love. Get over all that ego nonsense. Life is a lot better for all of us. Ask, listen, thank people. Don't punish the messenger. And the next thing is respond. Now, I don't know much about much. I know a whole lot about how to respond to 360-degree feedback. If you ever get 360-degree feedback the rest of your life, or you know somebody that does, you coach somebody that does, here's what I suggest. Teach people to respond in a way that's positive, simple, focused, and fast. Positive, simple, focused, and fast. It sounds like this. I'd say, Mr. Coworker, we're going through that feedback process, and the first thing I want to say is thanks to everybody who participated. I don't know who said what. A lot of people took the time to help me. I want to say how grateful I am. Next, a lot of my feedback is positive. Ethical, dedicated, hardworking, caring about the company and customers, good values, integrity, getting results. These are very important things to me. I hope what Score High did. I want to say how grateful I am. And don't say but. Say, and there's something I'd like to improve. And my advice, pick one thing, and whatever you pick, have it come to your heart. You're not going to change 50 things anyway. Just pick one thing that's real important to you that's going to make a difference. Have it come from your heart and say something that sounds like this. You know, Mr. Coworker, there's something I want to do better. In the past, I haven't come across as a positive or open-minded listener. If I've not listened to you or the people around you, I'm sorry. Please accept my apology if there's no excuse. I can't change the past. All I can say is I'm sorry for my mistakes. I can change the future. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you for input to help me be a better listener in the future. If you had ideas, what would they be? Feed forward. Whatever that person says, sit there, shut up, listen, take notes, say thank you, don't judge and critique. Never promise to do everything people suggest. Leadership's not a popularity contest. I'd say, you know, Mr. Coworker, I can't promise to do everything you and everybody suggest. I'm going to listen to everybody, think your ideas, and do what I can. Can't change the past. Can change the future. Can't get better at everything. I can certainly get better at one thing. And if you don't mind, I'm going to involve you and ask you to help me get better. How much time did this take? A few seconds. Positive, simple, focused, and fast. Then the next thing is involve that other person. Involve them in your change. If you want to change behavior, set a clear goal. Write it down. Publicly state that goal. Get a support group to help you. You're going to dramatically improve your odds on getting better. Then the next thing is change. I've been in business 12 years before anybody asked me what I consider to be the great existential question. What was that question? Does anybody ever really change? I looked at this person and said, you know, I got 12 years experience, PhD in organizational behavior, undergraduate degree in math. Have no research to prove it, so I guess my answer is I don't know. Good question. Well, let's see now, 41 years I've been answering that question. Now I know who changes, who doesn't change, why people change, why people don't change. Key to making change last is you got to follow up and stick with it. What's follow-up sound like? Mr. Coworker, 2 months ago I said I wanted to be a positive and open-minded listener. Based on the last 2 months, give me ideas for the next 2. 4 months ago I said I wanted to be a positive, open-minded listener. Based on the last 2 months, give me ideas for the next 2. 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. Now what happens if you do this very simple process I just described? Well, I'm going to answer this not from a theory point of view, but from a research point of view. Let's go to that next slide that says leadership is a contact sport. And by the way, the original study is going to be made available for you as well as the Feedforward study. This is research from 86,000 participants. We've now replicated this with 248,000 people around the world. What have we learned? There's no country this doesn't work. There's no industry it doesn't work. There's no level of management this doesn't work. It pretty much always works if people do it. Next slide is called Commonalities. Every leader in our research got multi-reader feedback, was asked to pick important areas for improvement, talk about it with their coworkers, and then follow up. And then we did a mini survey a year later. Has this person become a more effective leader, not as judged by himself or herself, as judged by their coworkers? What did we learn? Well, the next slide. Change in leadership effectiveness. When people said my coworker did no follow-up, -3 became a less effective leader, 0 didn't change, +3 more effective. If you understand probability and statistics, that looks just a little bit better than a normal distribution curve. I've done something called a control group study. No training, no feedback, no nothing. The control group did that well. These people might as well have been watching sitcoms to go to a training program and get feedback. Total waste of time. Next slide. The next slide is table 2. When people said my coworker did a little follow-up, a little better. Next slide, table 3. Some follow-up, lots better. Next slide, table 4, frequent or periodic follow-up, much, much better. And finally, that last slide, table 5, consistent or periodic follow-up, massive improvement. Well, they all went to the same program, got feedback on the same process, in many cases taught by the same person, me, at the same time. What did I learn? Well, to quote my friend Alan Mulally, if you get better, it doesn't have much to do with me. It's got a lot to do with you. Stuff I just taught you works. It doesn't kind of work or sort of work or only work in this country or that country. It pretty much always works. Shockingly, it doesn't work if you don't do it. And our challenge in life is not understanding it. Our challenge is doing it. Now, my main home is in California. Our former governor, the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, had a great quote about this stuff. You know what he said? He said, nobody got muscles by watching me lift the weights. Well, the key here is not understanding the theory of weightlifting. You got to learn to lift those weights. Now, I'm often asked a question. The next slide is called changing perception. Do people really change their behavior, or are they merely perceived as changing because they do all this follow-up? And the answer to that is the opposite of what you might think. It's much harder to change perception than it is to change behavior. One of the best research principles in psychology is called cognitive dissonance theory. Cognitive dissonance theory. To look at this, what does it mean? We see people, it's in a manner that's consistent with our previous stereotype, and we tend to, it's very hard to change that perception of that stereotype. Now let's talk about why follow-up is so important. Case study A, let's imagine that the leader gets feedback that he or she makes too many destructive comments. We'll say she makes too many destructive comments. And I'm your coworker, she doesn't talk to me, she does no follow-up. A year later, 7 months later, she says, makes no negative comments about anyone for 7 months. 7 months later, says, stupid idiots in finance, stupid bean counters, everything you've done in this company's run by a bunch of idiotic accountants. I hear her. My reaction is she's never changed. That one negative comment will trigger my previous stereotype. She's never changed. Case study 2, she talks to me. Coworker Marshall, I got feedback. I want to be a great team player, not make these bad comments. Give me ideas. I don't believe she's going to change, but I do it anyway. 2 months later, though, she comes back and says, it's been 2 months. Based on the last 2 months, give me ideas to be even better the next 2. I start thinking, I said, you've done a great job. It's been 4 months. It's been 4 months. Hey, keep it up. Great job. 6 months. Say, to be honest, Ms. Coworker, I didn't think you changed at all. It's been 6 months. You worked so hard. Thank you. Now you see what's happening. Not only is her behavior changing, my perception is changing. 7 months. Stupid SOBs in finance, idiot bean counters. I say, Ms. Coworker, you shouldn't have said that. You went 7 months without doing that. She says, you're right. I'm going to apologize. Situation A, did her behavior change? Yes. Did my perception change? No. Situation B, did her behavior change? Yes. Did my perception change? Yes. In leadership, it really doesn't matter what we think we say. All that matters is what they hear. And in life, we often don't see what's there. We see what we think is there. I'm going to do a test. I want every one of you to look at your watches. If you have a Roman numeral watch, we're going to take a test right now. Now put your watch away so you can't see it. If you have a Roman numeral watch, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Question number 1, what does the 10 look like on that Roman numeral watch? And please put that in the comment section. What does the 10 look like? Don't look at the watches, by the way, starting out. Don't look at your watch. What does the 10 look like? Just send that in on the comments. Okay, my friendly coordinator, what scores are we getting?
Everybody says X, as in the Roman letter.
Of course. Now my second. Perfect. Now the second question is, well, what's the 4 look like on your Roman numeral watch? What's that 4 look like? Okay. What reaction are we getting there?
Most of them got it right, IV.
That you think they've got it right. Mm-hmm. Now, all of you that have now that you have a Roman numeral watch, I want you to look at the 4.
I don't have one. Sorry.
Now, but if you have a Roman numeral watch, look at the 4. Now, send in the comments section, what did the 4 really look like? You said it was an IV.
Yeah, the 4, some people have said 4 verticals.
That's it.
1, 1, 1, 1.
About
1.
95. Yeah, about 95% of Roman numeral watches and clocks don't have IVs. They have 4 eyes. And by the way, I've done this with people that own the watch 40 years. They never saw it. You see, in life, we don't see what's there. We see what we think is supposed to be there. Again, I've done this with people that own the same Roman numeral watch for 40 years and looked at it every day and never realized it didn't have an IV. It had 4 eyes.
The response is, wow.
I didn't hear what you just said.
The response is, wow.
No, wow. The Roman god Jupiter symbol was an IV. They didn't have a J in the ancient Latin. J was an I. They didn't have a V. A U was a V. As soon as they didn't have a U, U was a V. IV was equivalent to J, U, symbol of the god Jupiter. Considered sacrilegious to put on a sundial. The ancient sundials had 4 eyes. The Swiss copied that to make those Roman numeral watches and clocks. About 95% have 4 eyes. And you've probably seen 1,000 of them in your life. You never saw it. You never saw it. Why? We don't see what's there. We see what we think is supposed to be there. Now, finally, I'm going to very quickly go through how our stakeholder coaching process works. And then we'll talk about some time for a couple of questions at least. First, it's okay to need help and structure. One thing I'm so proud of is my book Triggers. 27 major CEOs endorsed that book. Why am I so proud? 30 years ago, no CEO would admit to having a coach. They'd be ashamed. Well, what I'm proud of is today these people say, yeah, I do have a coach, and I'm not ashamed. How many of the top 10 tennis players have coaches? 10. Well, they don't have to be ashamed. Well, we all need help sometime, right? We all need help, and it's okay. You don't have to be ashamed of needing help. And so now I'm going to talk about our stakeholder-centered coaching process, and go to the slide that says stakeholder-centered coaching. Okay, the first one is, in stakeholder-centered coaching, you identify and learn from key stakeholders. The coach is a facilitator. We practice feedforward. We measure progress. Total transparency. For example, my friend Mark Tersick, the CEO of the Nature Conservancy, tells everybody what their feedback is, what they want to improve. They have a coach. There's no hiding here. And you involve people all around you to get better. Now, the next slide, when will this not work? When will our process not work? Number one, it doesn't help people who don't want to change. People have been written off by the company. It doesn't help people who lack business or technical knowledge. I get ridiculous requests for coaching. A pharmaceutical company calls me to say, we want you to coach Dr. X. I said, great, what's his problem? They said, he's not updated on recent medical technology. I said, you know what? Neither am I. Well, I can't make a bad doctor a good doctor, a bad scientist a good scientist. Behavioral coaching only helps people solve behavioral problems. This doesn't help people that have the wrong strategy or direction. And never coach an ethics or integrity violation. Fire that, don't coach it. When will this work? If the issue is behavioral, the person is willing to try and they're given a fair chance, this stuff always works. Now, next slide. It's to stakeholder-centered coaching. Who are the key stakeholders, and make their managers sign off on it. Create the key stakeholders. Tell them, let go of the past. Be positive and supportive. Tell the truth. And by the way, try to improve yourself. Make it two ways, not one way. Next slide. What do? Once a person commits to the process, then the person and their manager agree who are key stakeholders. We interview everyone around them. We collect ideas. We analyze results. We teach the person to respond to key stakeholders in a way just like I described earlier, to listen to these ongoing suggestions, never promising to do everything, feed forward. And then we follow up and measure, do they improve? And if you follow the steps in the process and you qualify your customers in about 95% of the time, guess what? People get better. Now, finally, we have time for just a few questions before we wrap up. A couple of questions. Do I have any questions yet? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Marshall. One is when you talked about consistent follow-up. Any suggestions on how to implement such follow-up?
Well, one thing I believe in is something called the daily question process. The way it works, get out an Excel spreadsheet, write the questions that are most important in your life on one column. 7 boxes across, one for every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And measure yourself every day on, do you do this stuff? If you measure it every day and you keep track of it, you're much more likely to do it. You don't measure it, you don't keep track of it, you're much less likely to do it. And by the way, if you're interested in how this process works, this daily question, send me an email. I'll send you a copy of my own daily questions and how it works. My email address is Marshall with 2 L's at marshallgoldsmith.com. Okay, next question.
Yeah, Marshall, one other question is, and paraphrasing it a bit, how do you manage people who are above you, bosses and so on, who are perhaps bullies, narcissists?
Very good. How do you manage influencing up? And by the way, if you'd like to get another, I've written articles about this, send me an article that says, effectively managing up, and I'll send you another article about this one if you want the article. Well, I'll give you the gist of it right now. Peter Drucker taught me this. Our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart, not to prove we're right. Number 2, every decision in life is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that. Not the smartest person, the best person, or a fair person. Number 3, the decision maker is the customer. If I need to influence you to make a positive difference, one word to describe you, customer. One word to describe me, salesperson. Sell what you can sell. Change what you can change. You can sell it, sell it. Can't sell it, take a deep breath and let it go. If you can't stand to be there, leave the company, but don't leave until you get someplace better to go. Change what you can change, make peace with what you can't. Now, finally, let me give you my final advice. Take a deep breath. Imagine you're 95 years old and you're just getting ready to die. But right before you take that last breath, you're given a beautiful gift. The ability to go back in time and talk to the person listening to me right now. What advice would that wise 95-year-old you who knows what mattered in life, what didn't, and what was important and what wasn't? What advice would that wise old person have for the you that's listening to me right now? Well, you don't have to do anything or say anything. Whatever you're thinking now, do that. That's the only performance appraisal that's ultimately going to matter. Some friends of mine interviewed old folks who were dying. 3 themes came up. Number 1, be happy now. At home, be happy now. Enjoy what you have. At work, try to do what you love doing. Be happy now. Great Western disease, I'll be happy when I get the money, status, BMW, the condominium. Hey, we all get the same win. That old person looking to death is win. Learning point from old people, I sometimes got so busy chasing what I didn't have, I couldn't see what I did. I had everything. Number 2, friends and family. I'm sure you work in wonderful companies. When you're 95 years old, you look around your deathbed, none of your coworkers are waving goodbye. Remember those people that you love. And then finally, number 3, have a dream, go for it. You don't go for it when you're 25, you won't when you're 55, you might not when you're 85. Doesn't have to be a big dream, maybe a little one. Whatever it is, go for it. Old people, and I'm old people, we almost never regret the risk we take and fail. We all regret the risk we fail to take. And the final thing I'd like to say is it's been my joy to work with all of you for the last hour. Hope you found our time together to be practical and useful for you. And my goal, hopefully, help you have maybe just a little better life, for the people around you have just a little bit better life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marshall. Thank you very, very much. As always, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I still remember the cost of my being coached by you, where you pointed out my no, I agree. That was just a cost of the paper. That was very cheap. Thanks a lot, not $1 million. So thank you very much indeed. And Magda, I request you to do the honors closing the session. Thanks.
Thank you, Marshall. That was incredible for me personally. I'm going to listen to this talk a few more times. I did write down those phrases, and it was a bit of a wake-up call. I do them all the time, so time to make some changes. But thank you so much for calling in from Dubai. Everyone, thank you. Thank you as well for attending. I did just post, and I'll post it again before you take off. I took all the articles that Marshall mentioned, and I posted them on Coacharia's blog. I think that's the easiest way to get them to you. I just pinged you the link again in chat. Try to space yourself out so the website doesn't crash, but please go ahead and download those articles. And we're going to finish for now, but please join us again in 15 minutes for our next talk with Caitlin Ryman, who's joining us from Chicago, and we'll talk about thriving in change. And if you can't stay today, we hope that you come back tomorrow and Monday for our last few talks. And last reminder again, for CCEU claiming, please wait until May 15th and we'll email you instructions then. Thank you so much, everyone. See you again soon.
Thanks, Marshall, once again.
Marshall.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.